we can turn it into something truly profound and hopefully a awakening experience for all of us, that life has afforded us something extraordinary. It's a gift. This manifestation of our world is a gift. And in the gift, there's so much suffering, okay? And so how can we be present with the suffering without turning ourselves away from what we're experiencing and still open to the gift? And so I've noticed within myself, there seems to be a lot of kind of painful news. If you look at a news cycle, and there's things we haven't seen in our country in a very, very long time, or our world. And if we really look at it, we look at our own suffering, our own loss of the way we used to live, the relationships we used to have, the world we used to rely on. Those things are falling away. And then we extend it and we look at our families' lives and perhaps the suffering they're experiencing and the changes. And we can feel, maybe open the heart a little bit more to that, like, what does my family feel like? Maybe they're not having my exact experience, but what is their sense of loss and confusion right now? And what's that relationship to me? How am I related to that? Is there difficulty? Is there tension in that family relationship? How am I relating there? And we want to look right now as like, what's the pain? What's the pain in these relationships we have, and the hurt and the words that are not being said, and perhaps the forgivenesses that have not been expressed, and the very real threat of, like it wasn't here all along, but we're very much closer to the experience of dying, if we're honest. Death surrounds us, as it always has, but it's right there. It's kind of at your heels. And a lot of this is like, okay, I'm going to protect myself, I want to protect my world, and that's all very important. But when we don't face the existential experience of this, there can be a lot of hiding, a lot of anxiety there too. And so we look at that relationship and we just kind of bring an awareness to what is being felt in that circle, the circle between my inner world and then my family and my friends, and kind of just breathing into your heart, and like, what does the breath even feel like when these thoughts arise? Is it open? Is there tightness, some constriction? There's nothing to do with that. There's just like a gentle opening and a recognition. That's very kind to do so. Not to try to do anything with it. And this leads to perhaps a little bit of compassion arising. Maybe we don't wish for ourselves, we don't wish for our family, our parents, brothers and sisters, children. We don't want them to suffer. We're scared for them, for their lives, scared for ourselves. Maybe some of you have even lost somebody, and I think we can all just start to open up to that sense of compassion for those that have lost loved ones in this time. And many have. And there's deep grief there. Many people have lost their wives and their husbands and their children and their mothers. And this is what it actually means to be conscious. It means, how can we open our heart, not just to ourselves, to our family, and then we open up in a broader spectrum, maybe those we don't know that have lost loved ones. And the tendency at this point is, there can be, I don't want to think about that, I don't want to talk about these things. I want to talk about Buddhism. Okay. But you know, what did the Buddha teach? What is the first noble truth that he taught? There is suffering. We can't skip over that. That's what our teacher, Lama Choki Dakpa, always tells us. You don't get to skip over the first noble truth. And so this here is a practice of the visceral experience of what it means to be in this world. And now we expand this awareness and we think about all the frontline workers who out of the kindness of their hearts are providing us with food, providing us with medicine and care, and they risk their lives knowingly every single day. Many of them have died. Think about that kind of sacrifice. What would it feel like for you to be a nurse or a doctor, grocery store worker, someone that helps clean, knowing that there's a high possibility that you will become sick and die, but you go anyway. Now breathe that experience into our heart. Wow. Now we can even open up to gratitude. Wow, that's love. That's love in action. There are people I don't even know that would give their life for me. What a beautiful world. Wow, what can I do for them? How can I protect them? How can I hold them in my heart every day and focus on them and their well-being? And so we just stay with this, however difficult it becomes and however much internally there's restriction, there's a tender, soft breath you use. Breathing in loving kindness from the awakened ones, from our world. Breathing out loving kindness to our world. Gratitude, thank you. Thank you. I'm open and receptive to receiving love and compassion. I'm open and receptive to receiving love from myself. I'm open and receptive, here we go, to the darkness within myself, to the fear and the anger and the doubt and the shame that arises when I'm kind of shut down and shut up in my home and I have nowhere to hide anymore. I'm open to that too. There's nothing wrong with that. That's all part of this. That's as deserving of the same love that we just offered to our frontline workers. There's the same wave of love we can touch our hearts with, isn't there? And if not, why not? If some of you don't want to feel for yourselves right now, and you don't want to open up to the wounded parts of yourselves, and you want to run away, just ask the question why and leave it. And then open to that. Deep breath in, breathing in loving kindness to that part. Just put everything aside now. No need to write anything anymore. Think about anything. Just open up, close your eyes, and see in your mind, bring to mind this part of yourself you so reject, so want to get rid of. In these times of crisis, you want to be in conscious relationship with others. But what's happening here? There will be no conscious relationship. This is your first priority. So the eyes closed, I want you to see that we can just visualize, you can imagine it, whichever way. that from your heart there's a beautiful golden stream of light. This is the light of loving kindness that emanates from the center of all of our hearts. Even if it's a little bit of love that's in you, that little bit of care for others, it's there. And I want you to focus on light becomes more and more powerful, growing and expanding into a wave of light. 1 foot in front of you, 2 feet, 3 feet, 4 feet, 5 feet, more and more powerful, opening, extending, radiating, awakening the quality of love. And then we invite in the parts of yourself that you reject. And you see them all walking out of your heart onto this golden stream of light, one by one, like little children into the light. Some are nervous, some are rebellious, some are angry. That's loves her only child. Do you have some favorites? You don't like some of your children? And so we see this, and this is not an intellectual exercise. You can't get it wrong or right. This is just the natural expression of mind. It just happens. You don't have to try. And if there's resistance within you, why don't you have that walk out of your heart too? No problem. That's just another part. And so we just visualize, we imagine, we sense, we push it away, whatever quality, no problem. We see them all gathering. And then there's this vibrant quality of love, and that just invites all of them to be as they are. Just to accept all of these parts as they are. We don't even need them to change. This is just a space. This is called the opening of heart. How sweet. Nothing to do. Just as a mother embraces her only child, you embrace all of this. And as you do, it empowers the light to move out even further. And further and further. Out into your home, into all the creatures you see and don't see in your home, in your neighborhood, your world, out onto the horizon of infinity. This light radiates. How lovely you are. How nice it is to really know yourself. And even at this time, if it feels like you don't know yourself, it's there, it's okay. If you're hearing this, it's there. And as we see this radiant love completely touching every part of suffering in our world with love and compassion and absorbing the suffering of our world, we feel very connected. And this connection allows our mind to become a conscious vessel for relationship. And that there's no need anymore to push away suffering. In fact, it is the way to awakening your heart. And so just bring this experience, whatever it is, bring all of that energy back into your heart center. And keep it as a place to remember yourself, remember your good heart in times of difficulty. Remember the essence of who you are. If I have a goal in life, I used to have a lot of fancy goals for myself. A lot of big ideas about who I was going to become one day. Intelligent, so smart. Write a book, oh yes. Insecurity of not knowing. I won't even say think about it. When there's just a question posed as what do you want to offer the world? Then there's no problem. I don't have to even become anything. I don't even need circumstances to go my way. I don't need things to work out for me. It's just how does one radiate as the embodiment of love? And this is it. This is what we just did. That takes a lot of stress off your plate, doesn't it? It takes a lot of stress off my plate, especially when I start trying to become something every day. This is just the way the mind works. It goes back and forth. And that's a spiritual journey. That's wonderful. Those are the parts of ourselves we talked about in the meditation, which is all these little identities within us that have their own plans. They even have their plans for times of pandemic. Maybe they have goals. You know, this is a great time to get those goals met, I think. I don't know. Maybe not. So, I was thinking about what is the, from the teachings we've received, what would be most beneficial to us from the lineage of awakenings, from the Buddha? What teaching would benefit us most during this time? And if we think about it, this is a time that requires a great deal of compassion. That's all we can say. The way the world is unfolding now is appropriate to the type of being that wishes to expand their heart to others and to themselves and to their world. Trying to maintain a world where they can continue on with their own selfish endeavors, however those may look. We all have some degree, and when I say selfish, I mean that there's an egotistical self that has its own plans and wants those plans to come into being to make the sense of ego stronger. That's what I meant when I said selfish. And I think we can all relate to different parts, different ways that our ego manifests itself in the world to further itself, unknowingly into great suffering. And so when the world is kind of plateaued, if we say, when everything seems to be kind of working, whatever that means, because you have to ignore a great deal of suffering to say the world is working. You have to ignore that there's millions of people prior to the pandemic that are starving in our world. You have to close your heart to certain places. You have to ignore the fact that as a human being, you have to age and you have to become sick and you have to die. Not have to, but unconsciously this is the trajectory of life. So you have to ignore really glaring suffering. You have to ignore the fact that you will lose any of your loved ones at any time. And then you have to convince yourself about statistics that your family lives long. You have to convince yourself that you have pretty good health and a good immune system. And these are the barriers we build around our heart to say that the world is kind of working. Now, how many of you feel like that's working for you? Do I have anyone? I'd like a volunteer actually to let me know, because we talked about we want to get back to normal, our normal lives. So is there a volunteer that wants to tell me about what they want to get back to? One, and two, how life was normal for you. Come on, I know there's someone. Who's going to tell me? Susan Scott, thank you.
So I've been kind of going along with this whole situation, doing exactly what you said, just ignoring all the other suffering out there and just being very insulated from the suffering.
Yeah.
Except for then, and I'm going to relate this to my kid, take it out to the rest of the world. All of the people losing their jobs. And it hit very close to home because everything was going great. You know, both my sons are working. One of the they both one of them just bought a house in the middle of all this. They're his first home, and he's got a wonderful girlfriend, and that other family's doing good. And boom, got laid off in the middle of March, and so all that normalcy of life's going really good with my kids having jobs and being secure now, and both of them being fairly happy was the normal. And so I find myself grasping to get back to that, so I don't have to worry about it. And that's the whole thing. It's really more, when I was looking at it, it's about my own unease and projecting unease onto them when actually they're just fine. It's funny because neither one of them seem to be like really worried about anything. So it's mom worrying about it. So I want to get back to that normal work. I don't have to worry about my kids anymore.
Yes.
And so that was part of it. And then this is kind of a mundane thing, but I can't wait to eat out in a restaurant again.
I think we
and
all
while that's
understand.
a small thing, that was it. So So thank you for the opportunity to say that. I've been sort of pushing that away.
Thank you.
And like when you said, I just want to sit on the cushion and I just want to do Buddhism. And I've been using that activity inauthentically because it sort of helped me push away what was really going on. And I say, I'm saying not really going on. I'm saying what was, I can't think of, deceptively going on.
Sure. Thank you.
So thank you for that.
Thank you, dear.
Opportunity.
Absolutely. I like what Susan said in terms of there's kind of this unconscious wall we create within ourselves. And if you think about it in terms of your heart, because that's usually the place where most of us relate emotion, is if you think about your heart, and sometimes there's that sense of breathing into the heart, sometimes there could feel like there's a contraction around that area when we talk about some of these difficult things. difficult things in times of crisis in our world. And then maybe it sometimes feels like we don't want to become flooded by pain, because we won't be able to cope with pain. So we just try to, the wall's breaking. It's pretty clear, I think, for all of us, the wall's breaking. Because the wall is built on unconscious relationship to a lot of things. And it was built that way. So when you build relationships unconsciously, that pain, the pain of basically having an iron wall surrounding your heart, hurts you. But it's a pain, it's a pain you get used to. And that, unfortunately, my friends, may be a lot of what we're trying to get back to. How to reinforce the wall. How can I keep this thing standing up so that the waterfall doesn't come in and wipe me out, the tsunami doesn't come in and wipe me out? I've kept a lot of things away, a lot of pain from my own life away. And perhaps those cracks are not really things you can mend right now with more unconscious way relating. So in Susan's example, part of her wall is, my kids are doing fine in the world. They have jobs. That's one thing not to get connected with, right? That's one part of the wall. And if we think about that in a way of unconscious relationship, that's very much the mother, caregiver. As long as my kids are kind of safe and okay, I did a good job. I don't want to be faced with, I didn't do a good job and they're suffering and I can't deal with that. That's not going to work for that particular part of my personality. Right? I wouldn't even say my personality, it's just persona. It's just unconscious. And so we fight to like, okay, let's get them back to work, let's get them job, and then I can not deal with that, and then I'll get back to me and my own personal stuff and get that wall going. And it's you can feel the stress when we try to do these things. It's there. That's why it doesn't feel good. It feels like you're like working against something far more powerful than your little attempts every day to keep things in a certain structure that you don't even really trust anyway. And that is maybe that kind of shaky feeling we get sometimes, where you feel like you're not really standing on solid ground. Because you're not. That's not solid ground. That structure is made to break. It will break in two ways. It will break from the incredible love you develop in your heart and compassion. And it will break open. And that's a little bit of what we did in the beginning meditation, an invitation to purposely break the suffering that has been unconsciously built. That's one way. Or two, the unconscious will become part of the material of your conscious world. It will rise up. There's no pushing the reservoir down. If you all can see, the reservoir of our unconscious minds is up. Destruction has risen. There's a part of ourselves, clearly, that does not want status quo anymore. However much we might say it wants status quo, we want to get back. There's something far more powerful. Maybe not the way we like it, not the flavor of the day that we want for our spiritual journey, but it's here. And if you look at our world, you can look at it a lot of ways. You can look at it as full of love and compassion and sacrifice and kindness, or that it's being destroyed, it's falling apart. How will you survive? How will your loved one survive? And maybe it brings up a bigger question is, what is your life for? Is your life for the maintenance of the wall? I use the word the wall purposely, Because I hear a lot of us don't like walls. We have a big problem with them. It's not nice to keep others out who need our love, right? But I'm asking a question. Do we all have a wall where we keep stuff out that we don't like? Just feel that. Do we have a wall? Kind of how I see it is the wall around my heart is this wall around suffering, and it's what the Buddha talked about when he walked out of the gates of his royal palace. He saw sickness, and he saw aging, and he saw death, and he saw birth. And this is where bodhicitta comes from. He could have lived his life as a royal prince, and everything would have been good. Good. Back to normal. But he didn't. His heart broke open. And that's what we are all being called to do. To Bud means awaken. Buddha. Awaken. Awaken from suffering. There's no separate you that can say, I'm good. And they're suffering, and that sucks. I'll give some to charity. That's not a real relationship. There has to be some serious blocks and cutoff points for you to manage that. And here we are. We can't manage it anymore, apparently. Because we have been taught a fine lesson about interconnectedness. That no part of this world is separate. It never was. And a bat in Wuhan can completely cause your entire life to fall apart. So no, there's no separation. So the question is, do you want to continue to maintain that unconscious relationship and in this way maintain suffering and maintain those things you see outside the wall? Or do you want to consciously break the fortress down? Do you want to be the embodiment of an open space? Because that's what you are. It's not even a want. But are you willing to just open? That's all. So that's something to, once again, when I ask these questions, we'll do it in a very different way in this retreat. It's not a yes, I want to do it, no, I'll never do that. It's not any of that. It's just a felt sense. What does that feel like? Leave it alone. And then if you deepen that, what does that feel like? What is the experience? Oh, there's some tension there. Why not just breathe into that and see if that opens up a little? And if it doesn't open, why not just be with that? As the witness of this, there's also the quality of being able to be receptive to it. The witness is not a cold witness. Awareness is not a cold state of being, just watching everything go by. There's a quality there. There's a very loving and receptive quality that I think we can all open to. So that's the direction we're going in when we talk about conscious relationship. What we're really talking about is opening ourselves up to ourselves. I wrote a poem the other day about my puppy and my cat. My puppy may have distemper. And so that's a very difficult diagnosis for a dog. It can be fatal. So he's not well. He's just a baby though. That shouldn't be the case, right? But here we are with our sick puppy. And there's two ways to deal with that. We can either get mad, can't believe this, where's God? Why would God do this to a puppy? An innocent puppy, okay? Leave the gods out of it, we're not gonna do that one. Why is life so unfair? Okay, what if we leave life out of it? And then what if we just look at the suffering of this relationship? This relationship is temporary. This relationship is here to teach you something very profound right now. Now, either you're going to love this puppy and you're going to have compassion and you're going to be with him in his dark moments and his fear and his illness and his proximity to death, or you're going to turn away from him and just medicate him and ignore him and ignore your own pain. And so we chose the other route. We choose to be with him and love him every day, and we don't know what's going to happen. So this is a choice. And puppy is a symbol of everything you meet in your life. We're all aging. We're all getting sick. We're all dying. We all are that puppy. None of this is stable. And that's okay. That's the beauty of human existence, of existence itself. The temporary nature of our existence gives us the power to really, really love one another in a very full way. When you think about things in this way, does it make sense to have this wall? When we really see ourselves this way, do we need the wall anymore? And if not, then we open up to sadness. We open up to suffering. We feel that. I know some of you, even on the screen, have lost someone very, very close to you in a very tragic way. I'm aware of that. And my heart is open to you. I want you to know right now, I'm thinking of you. And I'm grateful you're here right now. And I'm so deeply sorry for the loss of your most loved one. And may your journey serve to inspire so many of us who at any time can experience the same thing. And so, with that in mind, we're going to read a little bit from The Way of the Bodhisattva, Bodhisattva's Way of Life, by Master Shantideva, an awakened being that comes to us from, we'll say, the 8th century, Nalanda, and his truly beautiful awakened words stay with us today to show us the power, the capacity each of us has for love. I'm going to read a little bit from the 3rd chapter. And as I do, this doesn't matter if you're Buddhist, if you're not, atheist, Christian, whatever. It's not about that. It's about how can you transform yourself into an embodiment of love? How can you be that? I'm just talking about a quality. What does love feel like? And so when I read, each of you just kind of close your eyes and imagine, what would this manifest as in your mind as we read, okay? And so I join my hands and pray. The Buddhas who reside in every quarter, kindle now the Dharma's light for those who grope, bewildered in the dark of pain. And so we invite in the presence of all the awakened ones from every tradition to be with us now and to shine the radiant light of truth in our minds, into our suffering, and suffering of all those who are like us suffering. An invitation, perhaps a question, a prayer. Please be with us. Do not leave us. Stay with us. Never abandon us. And so when we do this, we can imagine what it feels like to be held in love that is unconditional. that no matter what circumstance and suffering you find yourself in this life, if you open up to this experience, it is there. It is there. If you just open just a little bit. See that wall you built? Let a little bit flow out of it. Just a little bit. For all those ailing in the world, until their every sickness has been healed, may I myself become for them the doctor, the nurse, and the medicine. Oh, do you feel that longing? All those who are sick now, scared. There's no vaccine. May you yourself, somehow, you yourself, as this embodiment of love, manifest to our world. May you be medicine. And just see that in your mind. How can I be the doctor and the medicine? Show me the way. How can I be the doctor and the medicine to our world? A very great teacher of mine said, do not think about what is possible or impossible. Just imagine. That's all you have to do. So right now, don't think about that. Just with the luminosity of your own mind, if you could be that, be that. Sometimes I see myself appearing as the very medicine that the doctor brings into the room of someone who is very ill right now with COVID-19 and thinks that they won't make it. They're scared and they're bewildered. And I think about what it might feel like to be the medicine itself running through their veins, healing them. That type of intimacy with another human being, where I'm not shutting myself down to, oh, I'm this body, I can't do anything. If I could just imagine it, how does it make my mind feel? I feel like love when I do that. Raining down a flood of food and drink, may I dispel the ills of thirst and famine, and in the eons marked with scarcity and want, may I myself appear as drink and sustenance. Now, many countries are suffering with starvation right now. I read a story about a mother in Kenya who is feeding her children rocks for dinner because they have nothing. And sometimes in the past, if I'd read those stories, I would, either like run to donate, let me do something. I need to give something. Not really coming from a place of I want to help somebody. I'm very uncomfortable with this experience. This shouldn't be happening. Or I would glide past it. I shouldn't be reading this type of news. And if you have that experience, I don't want to fill my mind with these things. Now, yesterday when I saw that, I just stayed with it. And I imagined, being that mother. And my children are crying. And they're hungry. And all I can give them is some rocks to fill their stomach. And then I can visualize myself appearing all of a sudden as an aid worker with food. How happy they are. And then I read another article that said that people had found out about this mother, and the Kenyan government has sent. And so that's why we don't think about what's possible and not possible. We use our minds effectively to work with what we see. Again, conscious relationship. Reframing your relationship to reality, to suffering. Instead of trying to run away from it, you begin to, like Shantideva, you wish to be the cure, the healing, the love. You cannot stand suffering. And this is the path of what we call the Bodhisattva. You want to become awakened because you cannot stand the suffering of yourself and other beings. This is a very high intention. It's a very high way to keep your mind. It's very, very virtuous. And so I encourage all of you to take this time, as I said in the beginning of this retreat, gift, reality has formed for you to awaken, if you can see it. If it were not for the suffering, it's unlikely. You can see when all of us have just a little bit of comfort that we're not too interested in spiritual practice, maybe. Right? And so it's better we don't have too much of that, so we can focus on why we're here. Okay, we'll read a little bit more. Poor and destitute, may I become a treasure ever plentiful, and lie before them closely in their reach, a varied source of all that they may need. Again, where there are sentient beings that are without and they're poor, we no longer have to make up stories about this, do we? We can just hope to be either in our own imaginings or when the opportunity presents itself to us to be what they need. Not what we think they should need, but what they need. What is the only way to know what they need? Is to truly put yourself, deeply empathize with the position of another and what it must feel like. What it must feel like to be in this position. To be living on the side of a road in the time of a pandemic without a home. What would you like to receive? May I be an isle for those who yearn for land, a lamp for those who long for light, for all those who need a resting place, a bed, for those who need a servant. May I be their slave. May I be the wishing jewel, the vase of wealth, a word of power and the supreme healing. May I be the tree of miracles, and for every being their abundant cow. Just like the earth and space itself, and all the other mighty elements, for boundless multitudes of beings, may I be the ground of life, the source of varied sustenance. Okay. And so, this is to give you an idea to expand your sense of who you think you are. That maybe sometimes we think of ourselves like I'm a physical being and I'm in this body somewhere and I can only do what I can do. And I have to protect this one. I'm limited. And this limitation is causing suffering. So we want to expand our mind into a much vaster space and consider, if indeed I could be these things, what would that feel like? What is the experience to manifest as all that the world would need? And so that's what we can do when we meditate on these just profound words, which I am ill-abled to describe the way my teachers have so beautifully taught us, but we can all try in our own way to share some of our heart, our experience, and be inspired by Shantideva, inspired by the awakened mind that is no different from our own, but maybe there's a little bit of shadow, there's a little bit of covering, there's some things to let go of, so that indeed we can be this. And what does that mean? It's not something to become, it's something to release. And so that's what this journey is inviting us. Conscious relationship. This word has been really, transformed into some interesting ideas in our world. Even in my own work, sometimes I get calls from people, I hear you do conscious relationships, I really like this guy, and I want to get something going with him or her, whatever, or they don't love me, so how do I make them conscious and make myself conscious to make them love me? This is painful. And I don't reject any of that, honestly. That's a good beginning point. Because what I hear you say here is that I want to be loved desperately. I really do. And I want to love somebody. And I want this to take over my life. So the embodiment of love when I get these types of calls. Great. You're just maybe going about it the wrong way. And that's okay, because we all are. We're all going about it the wrong way. So conscious relationship actually begins by seeing within ourselves the unconscious relationships we've developed and where our ego is trying to make things work, instead of letting things be so that we can experience this love. So I would like to have each of you look at your list about the unconscious relationship aspects of your life, and then see what are the strategies I'm trying to employ here to keep these things going. And usually these things are centered around some kind of identity. You're a mother, you're a lover, you're someone's child, you're someone's husband. And then if we go a little bit deeper than that, there's something called an archetype, meaning there's an arc and a type. There's a storyline, and within that story there's a type of persona, mask that manifests, pretending to be you. And this mask comes often, I would say, in these circumstances. One is the orphan. The orphan is a very well-known story type throughout history, throughout the lives of human beings, throughout the lives of animals. There's always some little abandoned child or creature that nobody wants and is left out to find a way to survive in the world without a drop of love. Talk about building a wall around your heart. We could see how that one forms right on the inside wall of the heart. Because this mask comes up as a defense mechanism to suffering. The initial suffering that happens early in life. I think a lot of us have experienced one way or another some story about someone didn't love me, I wasn't wanted, I wasn't accepted, I wasn't okay, I wasn't safe as a child, somewhere between 5 and 9 years old, 4 and 9 years old, earliest memories. And maybe to another person they'll say, no, that's not true, that's a crazy story you've told yourself. But guess what? For this archetype, this identity, it's very true, and it's running a pattern in your life, which is actually manifesting in your relationships, which is actually manifesting in your world. So it's prudent to bring this into awareness. And even if you guys have done a lot of this work, I know many of you've done this work before, there's not a time where this stops. So that's an idea to give up on. That you've surpassed it, or you worked it really hard, you work the orphan really hard, and now they should be pretty good to go, transformed into the divine child being. No more problems from that. Nope. That hasn't been my experience. Maybe some of you it happened to already, I don't know. But these parts of us, they stay with us, and we bring them, not even bring them, they are the path to awakening. As the mask is seen more and more as a mask, and beneath that mask there's an actual true face. It's a true face of each of these parts, but they keep their mask on very tight as a way to protect themselves. So as we evolve in conscious relationship, we're just taking off the mask a little bit at a time, and maybe that light of being conscious is very bright for parts of ourselves, of our mind that have been kept in the darkness of the unconscious world. And so the mask goes back on, okay? But that's what I'm saying, you can never think the pattern is gone. It's not, because the mask is there. But if you keep at this, there will be a breaking point of awakening where the mask doesn't have a use anymore. And it can. So we stay committed. We stay committed. So orphan is one part, and if you look at our lives and you look at your relationships and your world, maybe you see some of this playing out right now. You know, how many of us feel a little bit abandoned by our world and the things we thought were going to take care of us and be there for us? And the problem with this being the mask you have on is you see everything through these eyes. These eyes of abandonment, of loss and grief. And there's also a part of it that's shameful. For me to be abandoned by my world, I must have done something wrong. There must be something wrong with me. So there's that mask, and we kind of invite that. We invite that, if you will, to the awareness of the situation we find ourselves in this time. And it's invited just to be there. You don't have to rip the mask off the orphan's face and say, be with the light. You are the light. Have you guys tried that? You are a divine light. You are awareness itself. You are God. This is probably a little bit of a hallucination, right? Shouting things at yourself doesn't work, no matter how beautiful they sound. So we can kind of give up on that idea. And instead, as I said in the beginning of the meditation, why not just let things be? Why do you have to shout things at yourself and force yourself to be? It's time, I think if something our world is teaching us, it's time to give up on force as a way of moving forward. Forceful structures, power structures, telling life and people how they should be your way. We give up on that, and we start to surrender to things falling apart, because they are. And why do things fall apart? Because they are not really made of things that are true. Because if something was true and something really existed of its own accord, then it could not be possible that that thing would change and fall apart. If a relationship was a real thing, then it should go on forever and it should never change. But it is changing. As is economies, as is health, it is changing. Everything is in the state. But we have a negative relationship to this quality of life and our own being. Instead of embracing it, we try to create more and more structure to tie it down. And when we try to tie it down, we actually start to imprison ourselves. Anyone's had that experience? The more you try to tie reality down to be your way, the more tight it becomes around you. So the invitation here is, can you open to the great uncertainty, to the lack of structure, to an open space of, I don't really know what's going on or what's going to happen? Can you be, sometimes in California, where we are right here, it looks a lot like Tibet. And it's not a landscape I'm used to. You got these really vast open spaces. Sometimes it feels a little bit stark when the wind's going outside. And you feel like there's not a lot of grounding landscape to grab onto. It's just open. And my first reactions to being in this was, wow, this is a really vast space. I feel vulnerable. And then I wondered what was wrong with that vulnerability. What is wrong with being in an open space? Why are we so against open space? Why are we against vastness of experience? Maybe there's something there. There's something there very profound. And all these little masks we wear are trying to distract us from this profoundness. So we look at these masks, and we look at the stories they're spinning in our lives against a very vast and open space. So if you see these identities kind of creating their own little worlds, you got the orphan here. Another common one in this type of situation is called the innocent archetype. The innocent archetype is associated with a utopian world. Everything's going to work out. Everything's going to be beautiful. Everybody loves everybody. It's going to work out in the end. And there's someone taking care of you and watching over you. You're also not really going to get old or sick or die, and neither is your loved ones. Everyone's going to be okay. You ever felt this? This insistence that everything's going to be okay? And it has to be okay, actually. And if it's not okay, it better get back to being okay. Because you cannot stand the possibility of this world you've built up since you were a young child not working out. See, the orphan builds a world of tragedy where nothing works out. Everything's always alone and abandoned and pretty much sucks, right? For the orphan. This is not a good world. But there's a cover-up world. The innocent goes, I'm not going to live like that. I'm going to create my own fantasy land. Even if you created a fantasy in your childhood, you had little made-up friends. No one else understood you, so you made up your own friends. And it was a very sweet world. I had some friends. No one else knew about them. But they were very nice. Very sweet. And so that doesn't leave you, that, love is the way. It is the way, but not that way. Not the way the innocent says it. Because the innocent's love only accepts things that are beautiful, that are lovely, that are kind, that are wonderful. It doesn't accept a world that's, let's say, evolving. So that's into awareness today, and look at how that relates to the relationships you have in your life that are unconscious. How does that story match your life experience? How does the innocent story play into some of the things you're seeing in your life right now? How does the orphan story play into some of the things you're seeing in your life right now? And hopefully it will start to give you a sense of, wow, why are these storylines aligning so much? And if they are, am I really a victim of my world, or am I a victim of unconscious archetypal storylines, which look a lot like mine? But what if you did not have that mask on? What if you were not looking through the eyes of the innocent? That's another open question. What would my eyes see? And what would be looking from those eyes? Also open questions. I'm going to touch two more for today. That's it for these stories that could be playing into, we'll call it times of pandemic. There's an archetype called the caregiver, who's, you know, in its beautiful form. You have saints like Mother Teresa, but maybe that's not for everybody. Maybe you'll think of another saint that really appeals to you, and you, maybe His Holiness the Dalai Lama, this being that just loves and cares for everyone in a very limitless way, and their whole life is devoted to the well-being of others. Kind of what we're talking about before. That's in the true expression, we'll say. Every one of these archetypes, it actually has a true expression. It has an expression when you take the mask off, that it has a certain quality to it. So in this case, the quality would be compassion. But if the mask of the caregiver is on, the caregiver, unfortunately for all of us, requires a world of turmoil and suffering, because it has a lot of work to do and a lot of people to take care of. If any of you have had experiences in your own family life or your own relationships where you constantly find yourself in unconscious relationship to people that need rescuing by you, and the way you rescue them, it's an interesting mechanism. Either you come in to save them, or you get mad with them and you turn away from them and you give them tough love. And it's a little game. It's a power and control game, actually. And then you often hear the caregivers feel, there's something I read about compassion burnout or something like this. Burned out from too much compassion. I wonder if His Holiness the Dalai Lama ever has such an idea. He's just too much. Too many beings. Too many beings need my compassion. Tiring day. I don't think so. I've actually never seen such an expression. It's astounding to me how day after day, moment after moment, he has that radiant smile on his face. And he's just welcoming, loving, and it seems to be energizing and rejuvenating him, right? So why do we not feel rejuvenated when we're loving and caring for those who are suffering? What's going on with that? It's the mask. It's the mask of identity. The caregiver has a certain egotistical relationship to others. The other person who is separate from them, who is out there, independent of their mind, is in trouble, and because of their amazing caregiving skills, is going to be hopefully rescued. But you know, some people are lost cause as well, so you have to just give up on them, but not forever, because you'll come back when they're doing better, right? But you are the one who knows. You know about compassion, and you also know about what's right for people. What is the best thing for them? Let me give you another example. Do any of you think you maintain relationships with people and situations, not for their benefit, but to keep this I'll call it, it's an act going? Has anyone ever felt that way? Rosanna, are you giving me, are you gonna say a little something? Yes, I wanna hear from you.
Well, it seems like when I was in a marital relationship, that I didn't want to rock the boat, that I didn't want to question things, and then I felt a lot of energy was taken up into maintaining that, I don't know, maybe the innocent archetype,
Mm-hmm.
or reading signs of the other person instead of being true to what I wanted, what I wished for myself.
Sure. Understood. Thank you. I think that's, that's just that's a really honest expression, in that, do we maintain these relationships with others not because we're scared that they won't survive, or they won't be okay, or something terrible is going to happen to them? Is that really compassion, when, if we really look at it, we're trying to maintain this really shaky sense of identity around the idea that I have to take over your suffering for me to be okay. Because if I let go and I allowed you to journey into the heart of your own suffering, and I allowed you to find your feet and your strength and your courage and your deep inner heart essence, then who would I be? Who would I be without you being like this? And sometimes we have to go through really terrible pain in relationships, especially intimate relationships, marriages, dating, loss, grief. We have to kind of step back sometimes if we want to be conscious, and see how much of what I'm bringing, how much of the mask I'm wearing is causing suffering in my own relationship. And if I claim to love this person so much, then why would I participate in something that is clearly leading not only to my own suffering, but to their suffering too? And this is where we have to recognize that the stories cannot be separated. We cannot say that we want this amazing ideal. I want to free all beings from suffering. This is the ideal of the Bodhisattva. But then in our very closest intimate relationships, we're not willing to let go. We're not willing to let go, not of the relationship even. That may happen. That may happen naturally. But are we willing to let go of the story that we told ourselves about them, about ourselves, the projection of how they are, of how we are, and what our story is? If we lift the shadow of that story, is there still something there? Is there something worthwhile? And when we say worthwhile, is there something that's going to continue to evolve to bring both of us to inner awakening, greater radiance of mind and heart? Why so scared to take off the mask just for a little while? How will I be without my stories? Probably you'll be wonderful. That's the caregiver. I think we can all relate to that, especially now. Caregivers are probably really active in the world right now, because there seems to be a lot to take care of. But the greater care is the recognition of the pattern. And you can still, actually, the only way, I would say, to be truly compassionate and loving and wise and kind and all these things you want to be to others is to take off that mask and see what are the qualities of really being this way if you did not do it with an identity. And again, that's not something you can think about. That's something you have to experience. What happens, the Karmapa's quote when I wrote up this retreat, is accepting others really means to drop the projection. Drop our projection of ourselves and see what's there. See in an experiential way. So that's, if we truly want to be these compassionate beings that we aspire to, then this is a powerful way. This is probably the only way. And so the last archetype we're going to talk about is, this is going to be interesting, I think, for everybody, the destroyer. And I'll think, when I say destroyer, in all of your minds, get like an archetypal negative vision of destroyer. And just for fun, I hope someone gives me some comments on Facebook, and then I hope you guys, I want each of you to just go ahead one by one, and we'll start at the top of the screen with Cordelia, and tell me the image that comes to mind when I talk about destroyer. Image and some like, in a negative way.
Negative. That's funny because right now the destroyer is trying to take on a lot of positive in my life.
I'm sure.
Really try. It's just funny because all three of those are like all up so much
Of course.
currently. So there's a lot to say, but negatively the destroyer. Okay. There's going to be a weapon. It's going to be an axe, a sword, a torch. There's going to be violence involved. I mean, the destroyer Kali, you know, but the dark, take it down.
Right.
It's going to be loud, and it's going to be violent, and it's going to be vicious, and it's going to be. That would be mine.
Thank you. So as each of you go through that, the reason I say bring up the negative quality is because it's not the positive quality that you have problems with. You have problems with the shadow quality of this. And if you look at your world and you look at the pandemic and you look at this, we call it the invisible enemy, some people may say, kind of running through our world right now. Your fear is of total destruction. So there's a symbol for each of you in your unconscious minds that you're afraid of, that we need to bring into awareness. So keep that symbol, bring that symbol up and just feel, even if it's uncomfortable, what does it feel like to experience this energy of this thing most human beings really reject? Because destroyer also comes in the quality of death. It comes in the quality of sickness. It comes in the quality of famine, destruction of environments, homes, finances. These are the things we're actually afraid of. And your greatest enemy is not destruction, it's the unconscious fears of destruction. If you don't bring it up, it manifests, right? Okay, let's go to Griselle. Your image and associations, dear.
It's very high energy, and it includes all those things that you mentioned. So destruction, total destruction, total annihilation.
Annihilation. So
Absolutely.
So we can imagine that all the other archetypes you just talked about, the other three don't like this. They want to stay away from this. This is the thing that's going to annihilate their existence, right? Janet, tell me about.
Thank you, Davida.
Yes, of course, thank you.
So you've hit. I was so happy you would mention destroyer. Destroyer and orphan for me are totally at the subconscious level. I have no clue. I relate to everything that is said. Destroyer, scary to me. Totally rejected. Totally rejected.
Okay.
Have had a little bit more ability to look at orphan, but destroyer, not something I can even. What Cordelia described was actually in a positive way. I still thought, but it scares me. It scares me hugely.
Wonderful.
So,
I'm very happy to hear that, actually. because it shows me it's actually closer to the surface than you think. When this is something just to note about your unconscious mind, when there's great fear of something, it's actually trying to it's trying to find its way to the light of awareness. So remember I talked about all our children, they want to come out to play. So this is like the child that like destroys your whole house and paints dark pictures, right? And kind of scares you. But if you think about that child, if I had a child, I used to actually work with children who people had a lot of labels for. And some of them would, when I first met them, they, something would go wrong, they wouldn't like it, and the next thing you know, they were slithering on the ground, trying to bite you and making strange sounds. And when I first saw that as a young therapist, I was like, whoa, what do you do with this? Like my first instinct was go ahead and caregive and get them off the floor and make them feel better. And my supervisor said, absolutely not. It's interesting. You just observe the state. You don't go either way. You don't try to make them better. You don't react. You just kind of watch it with this. And she was not a drama practitioner, but who knows? There's a kind of a space of equanimity to watching this amazing display of attempt at destruction. And so I started to learn about this young little girl. She was blonde, blue eyes, 6 years old, just a magnificent looking child. And then all of a sudden, she would transform into this, like slithering child. And her parents would be horrified. And then my supervisor asked me, what do you think she wants? I was like, I guess she wants like love and attention. She's like, absolutely, that's what she wants. But she's learned a destructive path to get it. She doesn't think there's another way. The way her mind is teaching her it's hurting her. So your job is to be present when this happens and when it ends, and then to be there to teach her a different way when she's ready to hear you. Now, do you all think you have a little bit of a slithering, destructive child who wants to bite everything within you? And we don't want to deal with her? Okay, so your job is the same as I had when I was a younger therapist, which is to sit it out with her. And I wouldn't say anything. I wouldn't say, don't do that. I wouldn't say, do that. I would just be there. And I would hold a very loving place in my heart for her, and imagine that's very painful to be hurting yourself in this way. And then it would stop. She would calm down. She'd get exhausted actually. And then I'd say, wow, I just love the way you have a calm body and calm voice right now. Isn't that beautiful? Do you wanna come talk to me and maybe come breathe with me and do some breathing exercises and let me understand what you want? And then she would tell me, and you wouldn't believe this, that this is a child that everybody said that no one can do anything for. She chases all her therapists away. They're scared of her. Within 3 months, she had no more of these episodes. 3 months. And all I did every week was just show up there and do the same thing. But I did show up every week. So you have to ask yourself, not every week, am I gonna show up every day for this child? It's even different. It's different from the orphan. It's the part that says, I'm gonna destroy you, I'm gonna hurt you, I'm gonna hurt everybody. It's important to show up for that too. Because if you don't, it's going to find its way up to you. And when it finds its way up to you and you don't like it, there's a war. There's no need to be open the door. You be that. You be that therapist that I had to learn to be. And wow, in my life, if I have learned compassion. It was the gift of these children that showed me some things that, wow, that I really didn't accept. And who did I not accept that about? These children were a manifestation of myself, the child within me that was not allowed to be. I was not allowed to be bad, or hateful, or angry, or shameful. I had to be good. I had to be the innocent. I had to be a nice girl. And even that wasn't good enough, but it sure seemed better. And so they manifested year after year. I was just like, wow, I have a lot of clients. And then I just stopped. One day I just stopped. I stopped seeing children as much like this. And when I did see them, I saw them as a loving reminder. Reminder to love yourself, that part of yourself. So when we go on break now, I want each of you to explore the part of yourself from those 4 expressions that you seem to reject the most. You really don't like that. And then once you find that part, try to see how this rejection is playing out in your life, in your relationship with yourself, in your relationship with those you love, in your relationship with those you don't love, and your relationship with your world at large. How is this internal rejection, how is it manifesting? And the reason we can know it's manifesting is because you only see through the lens of your own mind. You cannot see through any other lens. You see through that mask. And the mask you don't like the most is the one that's stuck to your face the tightest. That you really can't get off. So I would recommend working to maybe unglue that mask a little bit. And the reason we use mask is the word persona, which is a lot of Carl Jung's work that we're talking about, archetypes and personas, came from ancient Greek theater. Persona meant to personify. It was the mask they used, because they in the amphitheaters back in the day. So we're acknowledging these are masks, and beneath the mask there's a beautiful nature. And you want to loosen the mask a little bit each day until you get more comfortable. Okay. What we're going to do when we get back, it's going to be pretty exciting, you guys. It's going to be super exciting. If you're on Facebook, you're not going to get to see this part, but you can join us on Zoom if you want to have an exciting day. I hope you guys enjoy like acting, theater, performing. You're all pretty confident. I know a lot of you've all been in acting classes. Yes. You like to be out there? Okay, good. A little bit of Hollywood. You all had a dream? Did someone tell you that you could make it in Hollywood? Just tell me the truth. Put your hands up. Is there anyone here except me? Come on. Anyone ever think about this? Thank you, Cordelia. Anyone else want to be kind of get out on stage a little bit? Come on. More truth tellers. Nobody? Okay, I've got a lot. Oh, Rose Costello. Yes, she said it. She's not repressed in that regard. I like it. The rest of you, I think you have to look at which mask doesn't want to be out there. Right?
Yeah.
So we're going to put, we're all going to get out there today. And we are going to do a little bit of dramatic production, a little bit of our own Hollywood, Dharma Hollywood for awakening, okay? We're going to have some assistance from a very well-known actress, our Sangha member, Cordelia. She's got some techniques she's going to share with us. And I'm also going to, we're going to do 2. She's going to do one, and I'm going to do one. And then we're also going to have a poetry reading from Rose Costello. And then each of you are going to get to perform for us. So that's exciting. And you're going to perform you're going to perform in a kind of a story-like manner this part of yourself you don't like at all. But it's going to be a character, understand? It's going to be like a movie character, your own movie character. And you're going to perform it, and then we're going to act it out, and I want you to make it really personal. I want this to be a situation in your life that's hurting you like hell right now. It hurts, it stings, it's painful, you're terrified of it. It's full of turmoil and shadow. This is like some dark stuff for you. So this is going to be like some really noir style art. It's going to be making the unconscious conscious. You will not be on Facebook, but you will be on Zoom, if that helps at all. So think about your story, guys. It's not like a what's this, War and Peace situation. It's more of a just a, you know, like a short. Have you seen those shorts, like 1 to 2 minute short, 3 minute short, something like that. So think about that. When we come back, we're going to do some of that, and we're going to see the purpose of this is to bring it out, make it conscious, and so that it's no longer living under the surface and disrupting your life. It's a part of you. Okay? So I will see you guys back in half an hour. Okay? Any questions before we go? You're good? Oh.
There were 4 things we're supposed to think about. That was I only have 2. The one that's more prevalent, your relationship with your relationship and how you see the world, and there was another one.
Okay.
The things you mentioned.
So you're looking at the 4 archetypes we talked about. So you have orphan, you have innocent, caregiver, and destroyer. And then you're looking at how this archetypal relationship within yourself relates to your family, relates to the world. And how that relationship is actually manifesting as your world as like problems or things you're worried about, and how it's actually happening through these storylines. So that's just to bring some awareness to that, and that's going to, I would say that's an ongoing recommendation to you to keep questioning this and looking at it and loosening the storyline a little bit, so you're not having to be forced to go down these roads all the time. And then you're gonna pick from those 4 the part of you that you really like. Kind of Janet expressed to us is like, I don't want to deal with that. I don't even know what it is, but it's not good kind of situation. So you want to pick that one, and then when we get back, we're going to do the performance art piece. Cordelia and I are going to work together on that. I'm going to do a little bit of hypnosis first, and then she's going to kind of guide you on how to kind of create this little play for yourself. So we'll talk about that when we get back, okay? Cordelia, you good? Okay. All right, my dears. I'll see you in half an hour. So we'll come back at 11:15. Thank you. Thank you all who are on Facebook and who joined us today. If you want to watch this retreat, it will be recorded on Vimeo, on our mindfulness community. If you want to join our community, it's mindfulnessmeditationcenters.com, and we'd love to have you. And we have classes every Sunday and every Tuesday, and join us tomorrow at 8 a.m. My husband, Michael Gregory, will be teaching. Thank you.